There ain't a damn Democrat in Washington worth working with, period. Let me say that again for emphasis' sake. There ain't a damn Democrat in Washington that we need to work with, period. End of story. Screw them. Beat them. Every chance you get, beat them. Cram it down their throat. We have a Republican Congress.
I love it.
We have a Republican president. We have a chance to have a conservative Supreme Court. Do not let this get away, period. Whatever you've got to do to get Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, you do it. And something that interesting happened over the last couple of hours, Bob Corker, no friend of the president, Jeff Flake, been very obstinate toward the president, said, you know, the lady's been given an opportunity to come to Capitol Hill on Monday. If she doesn't come, let's vote. That's the most encouraging news I've seen. Let's kind of frame the debate in a fair and impartial way. Brett Kavanaugh is being accused as a 17-year-old by a 15-year-old at the time, Christine Blasey Ford. She is a California psychology professor. Let's start there. Let me say that again. She's a California psychology college professor. I mean, if you went to Central Casting and said, find somebody that could probably accuse a conservative justice or a conservative judge from being on the Supreme Court, you'd probably go to academia in California, and you could probably find somebody to volunteer saying this did happen or didn't. I don't know what happened. I don't have any idea what happened. There are things I know, good John Cougar line. There are things I know and things I don't know. What happened between 17-year-old Brett Kavanaugh and 15-year-old Christine Blasey Ford, I don't know. There is no way anybody else knows. She's not sure she knows because in some of her remarks, she has said, I can't remember the house, I can't remember the month, I just remember it happened. Well, if we've gotten to a place in America where somebody it's not corroborated, there is no evidence to prove anything happened, but if we've gotten to a place in America today where somebody individually can stand up with no witness, with no corroboration, with no evidence, and stop the appointment of a Supreme Court justice and try to destroy someone's life, career, and family, then we've got to a sad place in America. Folks, that's who you're dealing with. That's the American political left. There is no shame in this. There is zero shame in this at all. One of the most interesting things that happened yesterday, Brett Kavanaugh hired, remember David Gregory?
Sure.
He works at CNN now.
Yeah, it was NBC.
Former host of NBC's Meet the Press before Chuck Todd. He was the guy between
Tim
Russert and Chuck Todd. Brett Kavanaugh hired his wife yesterday, and she is one of the most highly regarded defamation lawyers in America. She's no Republican. She did some work for Hillary Clinton's campaign, but her specialty is defamation of character. She is a very highly regarded attorney when it comes to people who believe they've had their character assassinated or defamed. So what happened, or what is insinuated or proposed to have happened, is that at a party somewhere near Georgetown Prep, I mean, she was kind of a ritzy little girl. He was kind of a ritzy young boy. And she says that when she was 15 and he was 17, they had a party. Everybody was in a drunken stupor, and he aggressively pursued her and I guess in some way sexually assaulted her at this high school party 37 years ago. Now, Kavanaugh and Ford, the accuser and the accused, have been invited to come to the Senate Judiciary Committee on Monday and tell their case. You know what happened? Cross-examination. Dianne Feinstein has had a letter since about June or July. Dianne Feinstein has not gone public with a letter until now. Why now? Because now, if you find a way for the media to pile on this, and it's about the Me Too movement and all these other shenanigans, and let's be honest, that's what this is. This is a bunch of shenanigans on behalf of the American political. They don't care about this lady. And for those on the left who say this lady's risking everything, yeah, this lady's risking something. You know what she's risking? She's risking how much money she's going to make and how many speeches she's going to give to how many liberal universities across America. She's not risking anything. She will be celebrated in a way that is unbelievable, and her life will never be the same because there's a pocket in America today that celebrate anybody opposed to anything Donald Trump tries to do. She'll monetize it. She'll profiteer from it. Once again, I want to be crystal clear. I don't know what happened between 15-year-old Christine Blasey Ford and 17-year-old Brett Kavanaugh. I know she sat silent. She says until 2012, when she and her husband were going to get some therapy. And in one of those therapy sessions, she described an incident that happened in the early 80s or the mid 80s, but she didn't identify people. She called it some elitist young men from an elitist high school who end up with big jobs in Washington, D.C. I mean, she says that she told the counselor who the people were. The counselor's notes make no mention of that. And she said, well, the counselor must have made a mistake. But you've got a lady. And I mean, let's be factual for a second. Let's not get into hyperbole. Let's be honest and factual. You've got a lady who's accusing a man of doing something 37 years ago, of which there are no witnesses, there is no corroboration, there is no evidence, and we're asking for an FBI investigation to stop the voting for a nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court. Because if they can stop this, there's no way to get somebody vetted and approved and voted on before the midterms. There's kind of some scuttlebutt. And Limbaugh said this, and I agree with this. Feinstein was going to sit on the letter unless the Democrats had a chance to win the Senate. And now there's a couple of polls, I think it's fool's gold, but there's a couple of polls out there that have allowed Democrats to believe they have a chance to win the Senate. This is not about sexual predator. This is not about sexual harassment. This is not about sexual assault. This is about nothing but trying to win, to stall and hinder the process of putting somebody, a constitutionalist, on the U.S. Supreme Court. And if you think about it, Reb, this is why it's so important to the political left. They can't run on who they are. There's no question. You're exactly right. There's a larger share of the American public entranced or enthusiastic about socialism. And Jamie asked a question earlier that I'll revisit. When you really look at the demos and you look at the numbers and you really dig a little bit deeper than most people try and dig, and you look at the number of people who support socialism in America today and redistributionism and collectivism, it is a lot more today than it was when I was a young person. But the majority of what's happened is college-educated young people. In overwhelming numbers, the colleges and universities around America are generating and creating a group of enthusiastic supporters in socialism. You look at the numbers. When you look at the 35 to 45-year-old, the 45 to 55-year-old, the 55 to 65, the numbers are fairly static. There's not a big increase in the number of people who believe socialism is the way to go. When you look at the number of college-educated people under the age of 30, it blows your mind. You look at the number of non-college educated people under the age of 30, it very much fits traditional norms. But when you look at the number of college-educated people under the age of 30, it's unbelievable. About 60% ascribe to the notion of socialism. Well, I mean, where do they get that from? The Chick-fil-A on campus? You know, the pep rally before the football game? Hell no. They got it from the classroom. These liberal professors are brainwashing a complete generation of American young people into believing that this is the way things need to be, that government needs to be the moral arbiter, the socioeconomic arbiter. It needs to influence the economy in the way that everybody kind of finishes the race at the same time. That's anti-American. That's anti our Constitution, anti our Bill of Rights, anti our Declaration of Independence. That's anti everything we stand for fundamentally. But that's what this is about. This is not about whether or not a 17-year-old came on unwanting and willing to a 15-year-old. This is about stopping somebody who will make decisions on the U.S. Supreme Court based on the Constitution, period. That's what this is about. So don't go down the rabbit hole of wondering whether or not she's telling the truth. Wonder whether or not he's telling the truth. I asked a question of Dr. Kaufman yesterday. I'll ask it of our listeners. If, at the age of 17, in a drunken stupor, Brett Kavanaugh came on more aggressive than he should to a 15-year-old girl, should he have some consequence to that? Of course he should. Does it disqualify him from sitting on the U.S. Supreme Court? How many senators will vote on this Supreme Court justice that did something stupid at the age of 17? You're allowed to be a senator. You're allowed to be a congressman. I think Barack Obama admitted to smoking marijuana. Is that illegal? Of course it is. Barack Obama was allowed to be president of the United States. Are we really going to go down the road of holding mistakes that kids make at the age of 17 in perpetuity? I mean, are we going to take a 17, and I'm playing out worst case scenario. Let's hypothetically say that the lady's telling the truth and Kavanaugh was a jerk and he was drunk and he made unwanted advances and he scared this girl. Should there be repercussions? Of course there should. But are we going to, in public life today, are we going to disallow somebody from serving the country because of what they did as a 17-year-old? Because that's what we're asking. That's what Dianne Feinstein and the Democrats are asking you to do. They're asking you to disqualify a man from serving on the U.S. Supreme Court because he may or may not have done something at the age of 17. Now, the thing he may or may not have done, we don't have any evidence. We don't have any corroboration. In fact, she doesn't know where the party was. She doesn't really know when it was. She just all of a sudden, a month or two before Kavanaugh was to be confirmed, she all of a sudden had this revelation and this realization that that's the guy that did something to me 37 years ago. That's asinine. That's ridiculous. That's shameful. That's indignant. That's not worthy of a response. And the Senate Judiciary Committee has invited this lady to visit on Monday morning. And I want to get to what Susan Collins, because I ain't a big fan of Susan Collins. She scares the wits out of me as a Republican. She's the most unreliable Republican in the Senate, but she's a Republican. Susan Collins said, and I quote, I'm writing to the chairman and ranking member of Judiciary Committee, respectfully recommending that at Monday's hearing, counsel for Professor Ford be allocated time to question Judge Kavanaugh and counsel for the judge be granted equal time to question Professor Ford, followed by questions from senators. If you do what I do, that is must-see TV. Mm-hmm. You don't miss that. Guess what's happened since Susan Collins posed that question? Probably the most moderate Republican in the Senate. She's really a Democrat, but she caucuses with the Republicans. Guess what Professor Ford has chosen to do? Maybe I show up, maybe I don't. Guess what Kavanaugh has done? I'll be there. I will absolutely be there, and I'll answer any question you people have to ask. Anything. I unequivocally deny that this ever happened. But it doesn't matter, Rev. It doesn't matter to the left. The left has no interest in how many people they hurt. The left has no interest in how many people they defame. The left has no interest in how many people they slander. You know why? Because it's a religion. And you don't have to rationalize religion. You can believe anything. People of the Christian faith believe miracles. People of other faiths believe other miracles. That's what religion is, an innate ability to believe the supernatural. And when your political beliefs are so irrational that they become almost like a religion, that's scary. And the Democrats are saying one after the other, we believe her, we believe her, we believe her, we believe her, we believe. Why do you believe her? Because you're entranced by this belief that you have, this condition that you have. Facts don't matter. It's not corroborated. There is no evidence. It's 37 years ago. He says it did happen. She says she can't really remember what happened, but damn it, you believe it. That has a religious tenor about it. That's not a rational person acting rationally. Once again, I don't have any idea what happened. I don't have a clue what happened. If I'm a senator and it did happen, I'm still voting for him because he's qualified. And it's not the FBI's job. You know what the FBI's job is to do in a background check for a Supreme Court justice? Are they a threat to national security? It's not the FBI's job to say this guy drank too much when he was 17. This guy drove too fast when he was 21. This guy, believe it or not, stole popcorn from the theater when he was 23. That's not the FBI's job. The FBI's job is to say, is this person a threat to national security? I'll let the politicians hash that out. But these idiotic Democrats today are saying, I want an FBI investigation. No, you don't. Let's say what you want. You want another liberal justice. You want another liberal justice because you know the American public are not going to vote for your policies, and the only way you can enact your policies is judicial activism. Mm-hmm. That's why you want this done. It's nothing about sexual predators. It's nothing about sexual harassment. It is simply about you need another liberal on the Supreme Court so you can throw the Constitution in the trash can and do as you damn well please. That's what this is about. And make no mistake, they will do anything imaginable to stop it. You're seeing up close and personal what they do. I've told you forever that the left hates you more than you hate them. And I'm not for hating anybody, but you're seeing clear evidence of how much the left despises anybody that doesn't believe exactly what they believe.